Hi, this is John with American Enlightenment. Today we're going to be talking to Toby about the series that we shoot, Unseen Americans, and his basically his transformation from when he started initial filming and as the journey has progressed.
It has been said that unity denies liberty, no happening. This idea has also been refuted by American cranks in our own doing. So, in particular, Washington, in his farewell address, of course referring to the Articles of Confederation back out on...
Toby, thanks for coming on American Enlightenment today.
Sure.
Okay. How many months has it been since I tasked you out? We started Unseen Americans.
It's been about 3 months.
And then let me ask you this. Initially, what was your initial feelings when you were going out? I mean, were you apprehensive about doing it, or?
I wasn't really sure what to expect. It felt kind of intimidating just to walk out into the streets with cameras and start asking random people on the streets for interviews when you don't really know, why they're there, if they want to be seen, if they want to talk to you, It kind of took a push from Case to just be like, let's just go out there. Let's just go. Quit talking about it. Go. And so we went out there, and the first guy we came across was Sean, sitting on a tree at Sylvester, just half asleep with a bunch of, all of his belongings around him. I was going to say trash, but I think it's not trash to Sean, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But he had a bunch of stuff around him. He was sitting there, laying on a tree, just relaxing, and honestly looked kind of unapproachable. But we figured, hey, let's go say hi to him and see if he's interested in talking. And Sean was awesome, and he started this journey, so.
What, initially when you went out that day, I remember you'd said your wife was like, be careful, yeah, that kind of thing, because that's a lot in your mind. But as the first interview you did with Sean, did you find that when you were talking to this man, there was a depth of humanity to him that was unexpected? It was an unexpected journey, yeah, like talking to him and find out what's in this guy's soul?
100%. I think that, and that's a good way to put it, because it was unexpected. I didn't really expect to see the human aspect of Sean so much talking to him. Like the things he was saying, the way he was acting, the accountability on his part of just being able to own up to where he is and not make excuses and not turn this into a poor pity party. Like, no one likes me. I'm out here because, the world hates me. It wasn't that attitude at all. It was more like this is a choice I made. He almost started to feel like he was a burden on people. And I feel like that is one thing I've started to notice through these interviews is these people feel like they're getting in other people's ways.
Meaning they're a burden to families or, yeah, burden to society, or?
Whether it's an addiction problem, that's usually what it is. It's usually alcohol or drugs or whatever. But yeah, they feel like they're affecting the people around them, and that the people around them are starting to resent them. And then they just disappear, and they feel like they're better off that way. They feel like they're not bothering their family anymore. They feel like they can be free. So.
And with your background, I mean, you have an incredibly talented individual. Yeah, I've never thanked you enough for all the work that you've done, getting Unseen Americans launched and all the wizardry you do behind the scenes. But this journey with talking, Sean O'King's episode, I do believe it has 69,000 views.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It has 69,000 views, okay. But what you did, because Sean, what was unexpected, I want to kind of delve in today, is he had poetry. Mm-hmm. You're an artist, mm-hmm, right? And you're like in the music scene, yeah, like big time, yeah, right? I mean, did that take you back for a second?
Yeah, as soon as I saw he was an artist, I mean, when we asked him what he did for a living growing up, he said art. That was his first answer,
Really?
Yeah, so I knew immediately that, there was a connection there because you could tell how much he's passionate about that because he's had other jobs, but that was the first thing he said. He worked for the state, and he worked for, I think it was DOL, Department of Licensing, I think, for a while. And but yeah, the poetry stuff, I'm already kind of a sucker for that kind of stuff anyway. And so the fact that he was so willing to give that to us, and not only that, he was adamant about it. I mean, he looked at me and Casey like, did you read the poem yet I gave you? I mean, we're halfway through the interview. He is already wondering if we read his poem because he wanted us to do it right now. But when I asked him to read it on camera, he had no interest. And I thought that was interesting because he didn't really want to express it himself. And that could have been for a few different reasons, you know what I mean? But
in the episode, you took his poem and you had it at the end, and it brings a level of humanity to Sean that was unexpected. And it was very artistic, and also very you humanized the situation through your expression of art and visual art.
sure.
And I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
I think 69 out of 1,000 people were impressed with it too.
Yeah.
But what struck me that day, I remember you were going out like, you were like, in case somebody pulls a weapon on us. I remember the conversation, and in case he's like, oh no, we're got nothing to worry about, and I knew that there was nothing to worry about because either they're going to tell you yes or no, and just don't push this up the matter, and you walk on. But the first guy you went up to, of all people, he's like one of the favorite people at the Unseen Heroes, at the food bank ladies you interviewed, and they know him.
Yeah.
And as he's talking, one of the things that struck me that it just blew me away. He goes, well, I didn't know last night where I was going to sleep, so I just laid down on the ground here, and it was like 38 or 35 degrees, or whatever he said it was. And he goes, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to wake up in the morning dead or alive. Oh, here we go.
Exactly.
And he just rolled the dice and laid down and went to sleep and woke up alive.
And had a sense of humor about it. I mean, he literally was like, if it wasn't for these pizza boxes that I sleep on, because he literally gets pizza boxes from Old School Pizza. And shout out to them because they take very good care of the homeless around here. Every night when they close, they give all their pizza to the homeless. They line up and they give them all the food they have left for the day. And I think that's awesome. I mean, why throw that stuff away? That's great, yeah. So not only that, I mean, they don't complain about them taking their pizza boxes and using pizza boxes for beds and pizza boxes for pillows. You know what I mean? Like, that stuff goes a long way with them. Sean had one little blanket with him, and he was pretty excited. He had just got that blanket, and you could tell he was pretty pumped about that. The hat he was wearing, he had just found. And he really liked that hat. So, yeah, I mean, it was the small things with those guys,
It's day to day, minute to minute for Sean.
Yeah, for sure. So, and he's definitely has a great personality. You can tell it's hard not to root for Sean. I mean, I root for all of them, but Sean is one of those guys, with my wife working over at 911, I definitely don't want to hear any bad stuff happening to Sean. I'm kind of
find him.
Yeah. I know it's so cold out there. I worry about him all the time, and she's always like, if I ever hear anything, I might not even say anything to you, and I'm like, yeah, you maybe better not, because I don't even want to hear anything bad happen to these guys.
It's horrible what happens to the homeless, and with the weather conditions, other problems they face are other homeless interactions, violent interactions with other homeless individuals, or somebody acting as a vigilante, that just wants to, get tell them to go get a job, and a bunch of, people jump on their car and start beating them up, or something like that happens. And you do hear about stories like that, or extreme violence that happens to them. So this is your first interview, and then you took his poem. I remember in the episode, you have the thing highlighted, and it's narrated, okay?
Yeah.
And because it just adds a whole new meaning to, you see Sean, and the reason why I wanted to call it Unseen Americans, because one day I remember I was pulling up to an intersection, and I like to try and help people as much as I can, but you can't hand people money because you know that they have an addiction issue, and they're just going to stick it in their arm, or they're going to put it up their nose, or smoke it.
Yeah, and you
right?
don't know which one's which. So.
Yeah, or what they're going to use it for, or you're just kind of enabling the situation by handing them something. And a guy was like looking at me, and he was making eye contact with me, and I just kind of looked the other direction, and I just kind of thought to myself, you know what? I just unseen that man. I saw him, and then unseen him. I just pretend he's not there.
Pretending like he's not.
And that's why I decided to call it Unseen Americans. Because we unsee them every day, and then people have preconceived notions about who they are and what they are, right? Not like they had, some horrible things happen to them as a kid, and they fell into drug addiction, and they just got caught in a cycle that just didn't stop in 10, 15, and then it's a way of life. How do you, from when you started and the first couple interviews you did, right? How, did you notice your mindset about things transforming, or how you view it?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and say that, I'm very much like you. I show up, I drive up to the corner, I see him sitting there, and I always think, should I give him money? Should I help? They're just looking at me. I feel kind of like helpless in a way. But, to be saying that I'm always feeling straight, like, oh, I should give him money, I feel bad for this, but it's not always the case. Sometimes I'm like, whatever, right? Like, I used to be the whole, get a job type guy. But I think as I've grown up, I definitely see the human side of people more. And I don't know, it's like the food bank lady said. They were saying, don't judge somebody when you don't know what they've gone through, when you don't know what they're going through. Because at the end of the day, you don't know how they got there. So it's tough to sit there and point fingers. It's tough to make fun of them. It's tough to say anything bad about them for me anymore, because I don't know what they're going through. But with what you said is, I don't know who I'm going to give $5 to, and they're going to go throw that towards drugs, or who I'm going to go throw $5 to, and he's going to actually go use that and buy some food. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I wish I knew who was who. I wish it was an easier task than that. But I'd say I definitely see them more as humans than I ever did before, especially talking to them. Getting to know their story and listening to them is crazy. It's humbling, because we look at our lives, and I don't look at myself as someone that's super got everything or anything like that. But I look at myself compared to them and think, if this is their perspective, I am not allowed to ever complain about anything ever again. It's just not even realistic, because they are so happy with so little that it just makes you feel ungrateful. When you have a house to sleep in, you have a bed to sleep in, you have a car to drive. Yeah, exactly. You have a shower. You have everything you need at home, and you can go home and use it all. They don't have that. Like, they're happy to have a bed at Salvation Army. They're happy to have, somewhere to go for the night. And then they have to figure out, it's like when we talked to Wiley, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. I'll have to figure that out later, and that's a different perspective.
That was one interview. I was there that day for that one, and thanks for inviting me along. Wiley is just a cool guy, and how he got himself, he's a realist too. Yeah. He's a stand-up kid too. Yeah. You can tell, but he also, at the same point in time, he is struggling to get out of it. But the more he's trying to get out of it, the more he told us, the less resources to help him out of the maze he got himself into, right? And don't you think that we as a society now, on the West Coast, and anywhere there's a homeless problem, by allowing this to continue, where people are holding signs and they're asking for money, and the powers that be are not addressing the root causes, it's just a Band-Aid. We don't have a mental health care system anymore, not really to speak of. If somebody has an addiction issue, they can go to, DSHS, and they can get into like a 6-day program or something like that, maybe 6 or 7 weeks later. But the problem with people with addiction issues, when they make the decision to stop, you have to literally grab them like that day and whisk them away. Yeah. You have to, because 6 weeks from now, they could be on another bender, or they could have got around some, old friends, and that willpower to stop is gone. Yeah. and we're running a vicious cycle. And I mean, me and you have a lot of similar views, but don't you think a lot of the money that's been found in the federal government that's been squandered or wasted? And I just heard today that there's a possibility, I hope this is not true, that the Social Security system has been ripped off for years by people that are still collecting Social Security that are 159 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, there's probably a lot of vampires out there, hanging out. They paid in, their dues, in the 1890s or whatever. I mean, they've been hanging out, and they worked a long time, and now they're enjoying a restful retirement,
At 159.
Yeah, at 159 or 100 years, 100 plus. Obviously, there are people who are 100 and 110 that are still alive out there. There's plenty of people like that, but not the kind of numbers they're talking about. And as an American, I mean, we all complain about paying taxes, and we complain about this, we complain about the government, complain about everything, but don't you feel that some of the integrity of society is gone now? Can you imagine being one of those people that was frauding the government, and you're pulling up and you're seeing people like holding signs, and you know that you're whisking money away that could have went to some type of situation that could have helped them. And the kind of help I'm talking about is not putting a Band-Aid on it, is fixing the problem. Because, I mean, I think you and me are on the same page that you can give a man a fish for a day, you fed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you fed him for a lifetime. And when somebody gets an addiction problem, you can't just like, oh, let's do 2 or 3 months. I mean, they've been addicted for years. Yeah. It takes this is going to take a process to get them out, right? And everybody's like, well, we can't afford that. Well, can we afford to have cars are now stolen in the Northwest? I do believe in 2023, it was one car in Seattle, not Seattle, in the Northwest, in Washington State, one every 7 minutes, and in Portland, it was one every 5 minutes. And guess who's stealing the cars?
So that does not surprise me, yeah.
And the insurance companies are taking a beat down. When they need medical care, they show up at emergency rooms, and they're obviously not going to pay, but they give them Band-Aid treatment and some ibuprofen and a bottle of maybe penicillin if they have a stab wound or something like that, and they boot them back out on the streets. And this is a vicious cycle. And one of the things that struck me when I interviewed Vince, that's a gentleman that could be possibly related to Nick Nolte, right? And he used the word skyrocketed homeless population. He said it twice. And that's in the last 20 years. And the last 20 years, my thing is, I think we've seen society morph from a two-parent household to single moms, single parents, and putting strain on families. And kids are traumatized at young ages from stress. And then now 20, 30 years later, they're growing up, right? Mm-hmm. And they're having problems with mental health problems, relationship problems. And then they get into addiction issues because that's a group, they didn't have a family now, but yet they fit in with the bad group that does drugs, right? And they, start morphing into like harder and harder things. And then their life falls out of control even more. And then their journey through life is just a mess. Yeah. In these interviews, do you notice any common threads that you've seen? I've seen it with people that I know in my personal life that I've tried to help.
Mostly just kind of what I was saying earlier about how these people seem to have one, addiction problems, right? That's definitely a common thread, is they all have some kind of issue that is a personal substance issue. Two, the feeling of feeling like not even like unwanted as much, because like here's a good example. When Sean had people to help him, Sean had people reach out to help him, give him a place to stay. But when they gave him the ultimatum, which was like his intervention, he didn't like what they had to say. Because what they wanted for him was, we want you to go from drinking 18 beers a day, okay, to 8. He didn't think that was fair, right? I mean, to a lot of us, we'd think 8 beers a day, you'll be fine. But to Sean, that wasn't fair. I drank 18 beers a day, and now you want me to drink 8, and that he didn't feel like that was fair to him. So he left the place he was at because he didn't like the deal. And that was, he had people that were trying to look out for him. So a lot of it comes down to, I guess, stubbornness, the knowing that you're just feeling like you're being a burden on other people, the freedom, like Casey said yesterday, the freedom. That's one thing I've definitely heard in these interviews is they like being able to not have people be down their neck. They like the fact that they don't have bills to pay. They like the fact that their little check they get every month, whether it's like for Social Security or whatever it is, covers them for the month on the street with no bills, lots of food, gives them shoes. They have phones. We talked to George. George said a lot of homeless people on the streets have multiple phones, nice pairs of shoes, coats, blah, blah, blah. That's not how I look at it. I've never looked at it that way. And he's not saying they're rich. He's just saying it doesn't take much. The little money they have now, they can buy shoes. They can buy coats. They can have those kind of things. But he looked at it when he got to the streets. George said, I felt like everyone was just going to have nothing. One pair of shoes, a T-shirt, one pair of pants. You know what I mean? He didn't think people were going to be, I don't want to say striving on the streets because it's definitely not it. But he felt like it was a little bit more normal out there when he got there. He's like, they have a hard time calling the people on their surrounding mates friends, I've noticed. They don't necessarily want to call them their friends. I've asked a couple of them, have you made any friends out there? I could tell they kind of steer away from that. It's not really friends to them. It's just people they live amongst. And
Doggy dog.
Yeah, and they've met a lot of these people and they know them. But calling them friends is tough for them, I can tell, because it's not like they're all hanging out partying together, unless, I'm sure some of them partake together in their own ways. But yeah, I think they get in their own way. They feel like they're getting in their family's way. And I just feel like they feel like a lost cause eventually. And I feel like they're not that as much on the streets. They feel like they're not getting anybody's way. They can just live free and just go and not worry about people worrying about them or getting in there or making anybody upset. And, that's kind of the sad part to me is I know those people that they're referring to love them. And they just don't want, and they love them all back. They just feel like they're a burden. So
When we interviewed Cameron, and that was an amazing interview, and how he navigated himself out of meth addiction. And he specifically referred to divine intervention multiple times. Not the same process is not going to work for everybody, right? Yeah. And as we've been interviewing everybody, because this is a huge problem. My thing is there's a lot of things dragging American society down, and one of them is just this is the new normal. We grew up. I'm older than everybody in this room, but do you feel this is the new normal in Washington, Oregon, and California, and places that are allowing this to continue?
Yeah, I think that the states that you just mentioned is a big reason for that. But yeah,
and it shouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah,
and it shouldn't. And the thing is, it's not like I'm saying we should punish the homeless. What should happen is we should start addressing what's causing this.
Well, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you feel like decriminalizing drugs was the right thing to do?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I only say that because I kind of always thought it would probably be the right thing to do. I always felt like, why not? Just decriminalize it. And now I see the effects of it, and I don't think it was the right answer myself.
Here's kind of the thing. And everybody in the audience, because we have all age brackets, we had the OxyContin generation. Mm-hmm. And anybody, doesn't remember, because as I get older, I'm standing there and we'll bring up a movie or something like that, and people look at me like, what? I've never heard of that actor. I've never heard of that movie, right? OxyContin was a synthetic heroin that was invented as a painkiller, as an alternative to opiates. And it was just as addictive, if not more addictive, than opiates. And the people who were making this drug, in my opinion, were evil people. They knew it was bad, and they were promoting it, like giving doctors free trips to Hawaii to help promote, painkillers. There were stories of pharmacies in the Midwest where people were lined up, like you'd think there was a blockbuster movie, and they were lined up to get their OxyContin script filled for the month, right? And it got to, and then the street slang was beans. Remember, okay. But that family who had that company, right, got sued, and a bunch of states jumped into the act and just nailed them, and rightfully so. But where did the money go? It was supposed to go to rehab clinics. I had a family member that got addicted to OxyContin. She went to the dentist, and she got addicted to it, and it put my life in a spin for about 8 years.
Oh, that long, huh?
Yeah, I at one point in time, if somebody asked me where my family member was going to be, I was, and the day before she called me and told me that she wanted out, come pick me up. My thing was, I'm pretty sure she's going to be in the ground. But she's married, a wonderful woman, went to college. She's valedictorian. I mean, incredibly smart woman. Still struggling with issues that happened with her as a child, okay? And she's trying to navigate her way out of that. But the mental health care system we have in the United States, what people don't understand is our children are our future. So when we have kids going to school, and I know this is going to be long-winded, but this is going to go somewhere. When you're feeding kids school lunches and you're feeding them trash, or kids can't afford the lunch because we, have single mom or single parent, scenarios, and there's not enough, and there's impoverished households, and then we're like lunch ladies refusing to serve kids food, and yet we're taking school lunches, and we feed, in my opinion, we feed a lot of countries feed their criminals in prison, not here in the United States, abroad. Feed their criminals better food than what we feed our kids. And their minds are developing. Then you put stress on a child. They're in a single parent environment or a stressed environment where both parents are working. And we have that kind of thing. You can't focus on the marriage and the relationship. There's constant strife going all the time because it opens the door for many possibilities. Then there's a divorce, or there's just no a mom or no dad, and whatever the scenario, right? Or in the society you have two people of the same sex raising a kid. There's still that stress because both parents have to work. Okay, now not just one. Most households cannot pull that off. Okay, and as the kids are starting to enter into their teen years and they've had a rough go when they're kids. All of a sudden they start to fit in with different groups. And those different groups are looking for escapes. Escapes, it could be, like starting off with just basic like cannabis, and then graduating to, vaping with cannabis, and then all of a sudden graduating to things like ecstasy and meth, and then taking it up. And then they grow up, and now they're in their teens and their late 20s, and it's the new normal for them, okay? We as a society, this is the new normal for us, okay? Seeing this type of thing. The skyrocketing population that Vince brought up, if you look, he said the last 20 years. Go back 20 years, and that's exactly when OxyContin was pulled off the market. Somewhere between 2002 2004, it was pulled off the market, and everybody was addicted to OxyContin, went right straight to heroin. Okay, we never we put a Band-Aid on things. America, whether we like it or not, and a lot of people out there, well, we should have some, just lock them up. Well, I agree with that, but lock them up if they don't want to do the rehab voluntarily. lock them up, and put them in a situation where they have a road out when they're out. Okay, and we put Band-Aids on so many different things in American society. I know people that are gotten out of addiction. I have a friend of mine. She's a really good friend of mine, and she got herself out of addiction. And if she was to work or do something, they would penalize her right away. And there's no incentive for her to try and get out. But yet now she's got herself where she's going to be going to school at home, right? And she's got to get herself. But the thing is, she's got 4 children to feed. And in order to feed 4 children, and everybody in this room knows that you got to be making at least, I mean, to get by with that, probably between $78,000 and $100,000 a year. By the time you pay the rent, or the mortgage, or whatever scenario you got, and the house payments, and the food, and the medical expenses, and everything, in order to keep the household going, $78,000 to $100,000 a year. Otherwise, you just can't get by. And we put so much strain on American society, and now we're in a situation where more and more I open up the news and I read things, and it just blows me away, right? And I kept saying this for a long time. We're sending money to all kinds of countries for all kinds of things, but yet we don't invest in ourselves. And you have 2 political factions in this country right now, right? And there's no third one really to speak of. I'm on the common sense party.
Yeah,
right.
There's really no independent party.
Yeah, but at the same point, how can you not have been running a government for, I don't care who's in office, it was a D next to the name of the R, how could you not have some governors to have fraud not happening in the government? I was looking at the news, and I'd get my news from different sources. So I don't take one side's opinion, I listen to multiples. I think the number was $238 billion of fraud in the United States out of the federal treasury government, the government being frauded, and they can't put a stop to it. That's like having waking up and having all your kids pilfer your pockets while you were asleep, and then go, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, there was the inspector generals, right, who were supposed to be, like the watchdogs to make sure this. Well, and I was watching a talk show this weekend, and it's a left-wing talk show, and he said, well, they're not doing a very good job if that's the case. Now, the thing is, giving a man a fish for a day feeds him for a day. What do you feel that what needs to happen in order to put the brakes on this and the skyrocketing population is we need to address addictions, mental health, right? I mean, nobody's talking about socialism, and this. We have to navigate out of this as a country. We got sick. Okay, those are Americans. Those are brothers and sisters, family members, daughters, sons, whatever. They have people that are connected to them, and they're outside freezing in the cold, and wondering if they're going to wake up in the morning. Like Sean's words, like I didn't know if I was going to wake up in the morning or not. Well, here I go. Right, and he's just going to roll the dice and lay down, and how many times do people do that and they never woke up? Yeah. Right, or the end outcome of the addiction was because, and we put so much strain on our law enforcement. We made them the new mental health care professionals, and that's not law enforcement's job. Okay. And what we're doing now in these states here on the West Coast, none of it works, in my opinion. It's only getting worse. Yeah. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yeah. All right? So I don't think that getting hotels and moving the homeless into hotels, that's a Band-Aid. Because they still have access to leave and get drugs or run their little games that they're doing, right? You have to break the cycle addiction. It's biochemical. You have to break it in the brain. You have to get out of the fat cells in the body. There's a science behind it, okay? And as you're interviewing these people, I mean, these are people who, whatever genetic propensity or whatever phrase you want to use, they had a propensity to get addicted. and now they're in a loop.
Yeah.
It's Groundhog's Day over and over again. I wake up, I get drugs. I wake up, I get drugs. I go bum money, I get drugs. Or I sell this, or I sell that, or I sell myself, and I go get drugs. And I run the cycle over and over again. And a lot of them that I've talked to, they seem to all have trauma as children. Vince's story was heart-wrenching to hear.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine being in a closet and your mom's shoving chicken bones under the door?
That's what I'm saying. The abandonment he's gone through is crazy.
But as a society, nobody put the brakes on it and said, hey, you know, this guy needs not like to be tortured, you know, and or we need to kind of like, you know, help him navigate out. There should be roads and pathways for people to navigate out. It shouldn't be where we're forcing law enforcement to, you know, house the mentally ill, because a lot of times people, like, say for example, we downsized the institutions, mental health institutions in the 80s. And that was one of my favorite presidents, right? And Reagan. And I don't think that if Reagan knew what the long-term effect would have been, that he would have went that route. I don't think so. Now you have where people, they you know, call up, you know, my son or my daughter is like, you know, cutting themselves or doing this. There's no resources to put the brakes on. You really can't get it done quickly. And that's a pivotal thing that's happened, you know, since the 70s, 80s till now. This phenomena of like, here's the new normal in the United States, right? Besides the homeless problem, mass shootings. What's behind that? Just one day that Americans just genetically changed, and all of a sudden now, you know, instead of, you know, screaming at the neighbors, I'm going to go whip out my, you know, my M16 and crack a couple rounds off because I've had enough of him and his tree and coming over into my yard.
Yeah.
Or, you know, somebody, you know, pulls into the driveway and whips out a gun and starts just shooting. Because we, as a society, we've evolved into something that's the new normal. It's not about like what's good for society, what's good for this, it's what's good for me. And we left mental health care behind. We stopped seeing Americans as Americans. They're just the homeless, they're this, or that. Or we started putting labels on people without realizing what ingredients went into making that person who they became. And stopping, you know, if we want America to change, we need to start with the generation we're raising right now, and help fix the ones that we have. But we're just going to have the same problem over and over again because we're just, you know, cultivating the same things. I mean, one of the amazing interviews we did was Wiley. You know, in his journey to come out of where he was at, he had difficulties finding help to begin with. Then he did, but now he's clean, right? And the better his life is getting, he can't navigate out because he's still having problems trying to find resources to get out of it, because there's, you know what I'm saying? There was he finally found a ramp to exit out, but all of a sudden now it went from a nice highway to a dirt road.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like he was saying, he needs to be on drugs to get help. That's crazy. Like he went to a house in one place in Tacoma that was supposed to help him, and he said that you're sober. We can't help you. That's crazy. Because you're still battling these demons. You're still on the streets. You're still out there trying to survive. I mean, just because you're sober, like that doesn't even make any sense to me. And I've said that to a couple people, and they were like, that sounds a little strange. But I mean, It is what it is. I don't see why they're lying about that. At the end of the day, that's kind of a weird thing to me, because if he's out here struggling, now with that being said, he did find somewhere to stay for a month. And then from there, he started to try and make a plan. And now he's going to school. He just signed up for school over there at Evergreen, and he's going to try and get his stuff going. But he still has to survive, you know, and that is his thing. I still have to pay, well, I don't know about pay bills, but I mean, everyone's got to pay bills. He's got he needs some money. You know, I mean, he's still got to survive somehow. So
He seems like a very strong-willed, because you have to be very strong-willed to stop an addiction,
sure.
and especially what he had going on, right? And he's a hero for that. But the catch-22 is that we seem to focus a lot. There doesn't seem to be a game plan from any of the state governments, and I said a game plan. There's no game plan like how we're going to fix this problem. And I'll quote Vince again, skyrocketed in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, I would say it's skyrocketed, like, and it just seems to be getting worse. And what are the symptoms? What are these things caused it? I mean, just a lot of people that I've talked to that had addiction issues, or they went homeless. A lot of them, they talk about like trauma in childhood of some type, of like, dad was gone, mom was this, mom was gone, or there was some abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, but abuse. And so, but what's changed between the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, and the early 2000s? The economy. And just too much stress on family units. And, I hope that the current administration keeps plugging along with what they're doing. I know a lot of people disagree with that. What I find amazing is that there's a unit now finding fraud, and everybody's mad about it and wants to put the brakes on it. Yeah, that's just like saying that we discovered, somebody tunneled in under the bank, and they're sacking money out for years. And like, well, it's okay. Let's just let it keep going.
yeah, it's just one team against the other team. Same stuff.
And it shouldn't be politicized, right? Because we're actually, there's two Americas going on right now. And how do we come as a country back into unity? And right now, who's stuck in the middle? Sean, Wiley, all these people that are a product and the symptom of the decline of America, because it started way back. This didn't happen overnight. This is generational. It's churning. And my biggest fear is that if the brakes aren't going to put on it, we're not going to have a country in 10, 15, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. You're always going to have mental health problems or addiction problems, but back in the day, the stereotypical thing was you would see in the movies, and this is stereotypical, a guy with a stick and a little like knapsack, like the stereotype of somebody who was homeless, right? Now the homeless population usually roam around with sophisticated, they steal cars. Okay? I have firsthand knowledge of this because I've seen it. The really bad ones will actually go out and steal some drones, and they fly around people's up in windows and go see what they can steal and what have you. And they're pretty industrious what they're doing. And we address the wrong things. If we address why are those young people or these people are middle-aged or whatever now, how it got them there? And if we put the brakes on, we start investing in better nutrition for kids in school so they can, not be stressed and learn, not shame children that, don't have, and maybe, give a good nutrition. Excuse me. Mental health, okay, for children as they're growing up. And mental health meaning that if they've got something going at home, abuse or something like that, what is a kid supposed to do? Who's a kid supposed to go to?
Yeah.
Okay. And also at the same point in time, you have just, the ones we have now. I mean, everything I see, I call it Band-Aids. Because, yeah, you've got a wound and you slap a Band-Aid on it, but it didn't stitch it up. It's still there. And rehab programs that are available, that are through government services as it exists now, my opinion, I don't think they're long enough.
Well, you got programs like Lonnie talked about, Lonnie in the wheelchair, and Lonnie talks about how he had a really bad experience at the last place he was at. I'm not going to say names, but I mean, it's one of those things where we need the right help too. We can't have people working at these facilities that don't have these people's best interests. If you're there, I mean, they need to really be picky about who they hire at these places, because you're dealing with mental health, homeless people that are just there temporary, and you need to treat them with respect, because at the end of the day, you get some people in there that don't really give a crap. They're there for their hourly wage, and they don't care. And now they're just treating them like crap in these places, and I keep hearing about that, and that kind of stuff, that shouldn't happen, right? They got to be careful. They got to be picky about who they hire at these places, because, like me and Kay said, we don't know how much validity went into what he said. We don't know, right? This is his opinion. But I will say, if that stuff is happening, it shouldn't. They need help. There has to be a safe place, I don't even like using that word, for people to go and just feel okay, feel like they're being taken care of. Like, we know if they went and stayed at the food bank, we already know that those ladies would take care of them. We know they have big hearts. We know they're good people. You get people like that to take care of these people, it's really going to take them a long ways. But when you get people in there that are just kind of like, like the words of Lonnie, leaving them on the floor, not helping people in their mid-80s get up off the ground, just leaving them there, stuff like that, being rude, not caring about your patients, it's not going to help anything. That is like the worst case scenario for these guys,
What do you think about the approach, like, say, for example, and I call these kind of like criminal addict, scenarios, where you have people out, they're stealing cars, they're robbing houses, they're waiting for people who are on vacation, and they are career criminal addicts.
Yeah.
And usually that scenario is usually males, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have, women do what women do to get money, right? But they don't want any help, what have you. What do we do about that? Yeah. My thing is that I'm a big proponent of tough love at that point. It's time to put the brakes on.
Yeah.
And not like where they bounce out and then they go to drug court and they're in and out, in and out. It's like, no, you are going to go to a facility now. This is, this happened one time before, some kind of a standard. You didn't ask for help that time. Now we're going to go ahead and you're going to get your rehab done. Yeah. And these are your two roads. You can do like a really lengthy sentence, or you can do this and we help you out and get your life back, right? Yeah. And it'd be amazing how many people want to get their life back, and they're giving that. But you have to get the problem is people out there like, well, they got to be accountable. The thing is, when you dump chemicals in somebody's brain, you're not dealing with the same person anymore. It rewires. There's a science behind it. Meth burns out different avenues of thinking, and the brain rewires itself. Same thing with fentanyl and other drugs. Mm-hmm. The way you're approaching it, it's a Band-Aid. And my thing is, I think there should be more of a long-term game plan. And if people are asking for help, they should be able to walk into a public facility, put their drugs in a box, and get into a rehab program. Because for us, all the taxpayers are going to have to pay. Well, okay, maybe we shouldn't be shipping money off to other countries. And we could probably invest some money into this, and solve the problem. Maybe we could stop illicit. We remove the customers, right? You're going to stop a lot of the flow of what's coming in here, okay? There'll always be drugs, and always people want to party, or whatever. There's going to be a certain segment of the population that gets addicted, right? That's the way it is. But the thing is, there's the valves in the West Coast have been left open, and nobody's, the sink's been pouring over for a long time. Mm-hmm. So back to the interviews. You've seen like the homeless complain about different programs, and the lack of respect, and they can't navigate out. How did that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel bad for them for the fact that they're trying to do the right thing. Yeah. These people, they're taking accountability. That's what I said earlier. They really just want to kind of make things work. And one thing that stuck out to me was that Sean, George, and Lonnie all said was, "I won't steal from anybody. I'm not a thief. I'm not a crook. I don't rob people. So it's tough out here. You know what I mean? Like, doing it the right way, doing it the legitimate way, the legal way, that's what makes it tough for them. They're like, if we were out here robbing people, if we were out here stealing, it'd be easy. It'd be easy to go to the store, take a candy bar if you're hungry. But they won't even do that because of morals. You know, for them, it's all about being who they really are still, even though they're at this point in their life. And I feel like that's crazy. Like that, because it seems like when you get desperate, like, how do you hang on to your morals when you're desperate? You know what I mean? You're just
It's rough.
it's crazy. Yeah, so
Your survival instincts kick into gear.
so their characters have impressed me. That's been the thing about these people on the streets. It's impressive. I mean,
Did that have a personal impact on you and how you view humanity?
yes, for sure, definitely. Just because, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I'm a good person. I don't steal. I'm not. I'm definitely like they are. But if I was at the bottom, if I was desperate, if I was at rock bottom and I had nothing, I don't know what I would do. I have no idea. So that's just weird that they're at a point where they're at the bottom and they don't care. They're like, I'm still who I am. It's like when Sean says, I don't care if I wake up tomorrow. Just he's accepted this. So there's no, he wants to do better, but he's totally cool with what he has right now.
Because he has no road to get out.
Exactly.
So this is his normal now for him.
He's in survival mode, but he's still going to do it on his terms.
Do you feel America, in some aspects, we've lost our way in the last 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just gotten worse and worse. I mean, since I've been alive, I've just seen everything go downhill. Like, we live in a different society now. Everybody's like, I don't know what it is. I feel like people almost will never be happy until we're just at our own detriment.
Do you think that we've been kind of programmed not to care about other people? You see, what's funny, this happened to me when I was coming back from the East Coast. I broke down in Montana, outside of Missoula, Montana, 39 miles out, and I had to go for the tow company to walk down to get a mile marker. Otherwise, they weren't going to come tow my truck. Yeah. And a couple pulled up. This is during COVID. And they said, hey, do you need a lift? I said, yeah, I need to get down the next mile marker. They said, we can take you down that far, but we're not going to be able to take you back. My wife will get in the back seat. We'll give you a lift down there. And around here, nobody is going to give you a ride. If you were freezing cold, soaking wet at 3 o'clock in the morning, or some kind of storm was out, nobody's going to whip up and say, hey, you need to get out of this weather. Do you need some help? They're just going to continue driving down the road because that's our new normal, is to unsee people. We don't care about other people because everybody's been focused on themselves. But at the same point in time, we don't focus on the long game. And what I'm trying to get across with a lot of things I'm doing is we lost our game plan about 30 years ago. Yeah. Our jobs started leaving this country. We started stressing the economy. Divorce rates went way up. Nobody stays together anymore. Single parent households. It changed. It became the new normal, the new America.
I think you nailed it the other day when you were talking about the experiment the guy did where he had like 30 people, showed them all like a picture, and then had 29 of them lie about what they saw and had the one person actually knew. You know what I'm talking about? And then was it you? So he has 30 people in a room. He shows like a picture of a red apple to them. Uh-huh. He tells 29 of them to lie to the one person that actually is going to tell the truth. So the 29 people go and they're like, what color was that apple? They're all like yellow, 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 yellow. They get to the person that's not in on this and they feel so influenced to say yellow because 29 people just said that apple was yellow. They think they feel crazy. They know it's a red apple, but they just watched 29 people in front of them say it was yellow. So they just said yellow.
Sounds like the media propaganda.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at. Is that whole follow the sheep mentality and not just being able to just man up and just say, what it is or whatever, and just trying to be like everyone else. I think that's really the bigger picture to all of this is we've ended up going downhill because we can't think for ourselves. I really believe that.
All the media tells you how to
Exactly,
think,
yeah.
or how to feel,
Yeah.
or what you should own, or or what. Don't you find it funny that TikTok, right? Everybody's like, oh no, he's going there, right?
Yeah.
You know, in TikTok in China, they show like art, educational videos, things to actually feed youth good stuff,
Intellectual stuff.
and then what do we got here in the United States?
Twerking.
Yeah, people jumping out of cars, twerking their booty around and what have you, and then jumping back into the car, or shoving some chemical in a tablespoon down their mouth, and then some poor kid dies in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Right. All these challenges. That's a dumbed down America.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so and if you talk, what's funny is there was a great movie out. I watched it a couple years ago, and I can't say the name of it because you can't, do that. But genetically, society alters, and people that are not as intelligent start getting a lot more babies, and then basically the IQ of the human race just drops. And if you don't work your muscles out, they don't grow. But if you don't work your mind out, and one of the things that people like, right or left, I see nowadays, it's like, how do we find our way out? What's our game plan to get out of this now? Okay, all right, fine. You don't agree on 100%, but we have these common problems. Whether it's Republican or it's a Democrat issue, there are homeless people that, it's a huge problem. It's costing society lots of money. Our humanity is gone as a country in a lot of ways, I view it, because we've just stopped seeing them. It's just the new normal. You go leave a coffee shop nowadays, and there's somebody standing there with a sign at the corner. You go to the grocery store, there's somebody with a sign standing out, trying to, spange for some this or that. 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, and it's what's funny is the area that I live in, where I see people spanging, trying to get change or money. What's ironic to me is I don't see the same person 2 times. It's like this different people all the time. So it tells me that the population is off the rails.
Yeah.
And they don't stay in one spot because they rotate around. But how many people are we talking between Washington, Oregon, and California are actually truly like in the addiction homeless cycle? Yeah. And one thing that drives me nuts in like media, they'll say the homeless issue. They don't say homeless addict mental health issue, because that's, to me, that's what it is.
Yeah, there's more to it.
Yeah, they're just not homeless because, and there are a percentage of people that were paycheck to paycheck and they lost their place, or they had a medical condition and things just spun out of control, and now them and the kids are in the SUV, living in the SUV.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's exactly why we went on this journey. I really want to know what these people, what they're going through. Like I've always looked at homeless people and wondered, how the heck did you get there?
And that's why, that's the big thing why I wanted to get started.
It's crazy because I don't feel like, America's like split down the middle when it comes to homelessness. We got a lot of people that just can't stand them. They think they're just like, they get in the way. And then you have the other side that are people that feel really bad. I remember my mom one time, we were driving by an older gentleman who was there just freezing. It was last winter. And we drove, and my mom, I've driven by homeless people with my mom my whole life. My mom, for some reason with this particular guy, just started crying. She just was like, it's too cold for him. He's too old to be out here. It just broke her heart seeing this guy sitting there. So I was like, she was like, we need to go get him coffee and food. And at the time I was like, I just want to go home, right? So she's like, all right, right? We go home. She tells Greg, her husband, hey, he's sitting down at that corner about 5 miles away on that corner. Go buy him some food and get him some coffee. And so he did. He drove down there, bought him a meal, bought him some coffee, and he took it to him. You know, my mom was determined to help this guy because just something in her when she saw this guy was just speaking to her. She was like, he should not. And I do think she could relate a lot. Similar age to her. I think she was just thinking, there's no way this guy's out here in this colder weather. That's, you know, and it really is hard to fathom when you see how cold it is and how you know.
When you've been out doing your interviews, right? And we have the luxury of, you know, hanging out in a studio in a warm building.
Sure.
And when you're out there, can you picture being out there 16, 20 hours?
No.
Without like some kind of heating to get warm once in a while? I mean.
And their whole attitude is like, oh, I'm good. I got this blanket and this pizza box. It's crazy to me. It's mind-boggling just to think that they're okay with that, you know? Like we when we were out, we saw a group called Oli Maps out there walking around giving blankets and other stuff to tents and blankets to people on the streets. And we thought that was great, you know? And they had some kind words for us and said, you know, you guys should bring blankets for these guys. You should do that, you know? And we're like, oh, we help as much as we can. But it's one of those things where you get out there and you see it firsthand, you realize, like, dang, I can't imagine being out here.
You know, it'd be so super cool, besides the tents and the blankets, is would you like to, like, change your life? Would you like to do a rehab program? Or would you like to, you know, get into something, get clean? And here's a packet on how to do it. And we could fill this out right now. And I have a tablet with me, and we can Wi-Fi your application in and get you some help and get you into a treatment program by tomorrow. Yeah. Would you like to do that? Again, the tents and the blankets are a great thing, but the thing is, it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. It's just oh, look, there's a scratch, and let's slap a Band-Aid on. But we keep, as a country, the wound never heals. You know, what do you think the road out is now? I mean, this is not a right or left issue. How do we navigate out of this now? This is a huge problem.
That's the big question. That's what I've wrapped my brain around when we're out there. That's what I think about. Me and Casey have talked about it. I don't really know, to be honest, what the answer is. You know, and that's the thing. Like everything I think of, like, you know, the tiny homes. When the tiny homes was presented, at first I thought, wow, that might be a great idea. But those just turned into drug houses, right? And then,
that's the continuing problem.
You know, yeah, and then we had the camps, you know, so they made these camps, now those camps are just drug infested, you know, and some of them are extremely violent. So, and then it's like we try and think of things, I think it was Japan, I saw they had come up with these, they're about this tall, and it's like 3 beds that you go in and like a wall comes down. And it's just for people to sleep in, you know? But I've always admired how innovative Japan is. They're always like...
Oh, there's no doubt that Asian countries are very, very innovative and intelligent.
Very much so.
Very much so. Yeah. But you know what's funny is the current state we have in America. Oh, let's get a grant going for that, and we'll throw $30 million at it, and then all of a sudden, then hardly anything gets done. There's a bunch of study programs. All of a sudden, all the money disappears. Yeah. Shazam! Because it's the me thing. It's not like, you know what's funny is there's a lot of boardrooms, and back in the 80s and the 70s when big corporations were starting to shut down Detroit, and let's move jobs to Mexico or give them to China, right? Or wherever they moved them to. Yeah. But not one person at board meeting said, hey, you know, as an American, we are Americans, that long-term will collapse America from within. Sure, it's going to make us some money in the short run, but the thing is, you're destroying the American economy, destroying the American society, you're destroying the American families, you're collapsing everything from within. You're taking away those manufacturing jobs. This is a huge thing. I really do hope that the current administration plugs along and gets things, you know, starts us back on avenue of buying American and getting us pumped up as a country. And I'm sure a lot of people out there are like, oh, that's, yes, I'm very patriotic. My dad, his biggest dream in life was to come to this country, and he didn't fight a bunch of, in the Second World War against the evil empire, right? And there was, so much things, the stories he told me, for him to come here, and then also I'm seeing this country like literally falling apart. And when we leave here, we don't even have to travel 20 feet before we encounter what we're talking about. Not even 20 feet.
Yeah. I mean, I this is one thing Cam said that I feel like really.
I have a lot of respect for him.
One thing Cam said that really kind of I took to heart is, and he sticks with this, is drug court. Drug court helps a lot of people, a ton of people. That is, it seems to be the most effective thing out of people I know personally that have gotten sober from meth. Those people all got arrested, went to drug court. Drug court helped them. It was, I think it's just something about having to follow the rules or you'll get in trouble. You know what I mean? You have to stay clean. And that forces them in there. Now, our jails are so full that we can't even put people in jail. So if you do a petty crime, they're not even going to throw you in jail here. There is no room. So because all of the jails being so full, I feel like that's throwing people right back on the streets again. And that's not helping people.
There's other things that it started from that. There was stories, I've heard stories in California, shoplifters just walking into, department stores or whatever, grabbing stuff and just walk out because the employees can't stop them. Yeah. And law enforcement is stretched so thin and they can't even respond quick enough. So they just walk in, grab stuff and walk out. Yeah. So we are now having laws that cater and actually enable addictions. Mm-hmm. That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
You can't law. The thing is, this isn't the Wild Wild West. It's like, well, you stole a horse, let's lynch him. No, what we got going on now is we got people that are products of what I'm talking about through their childhoods and how they progressed into young adults. And yeah, sure, you have some people just wired wrong from the beginning. That's just a medical fact. But now you got them into adult life, and now they're in a cycle. They're in a loop. Every day is Groundhog's Day. It's like, I got to get up. Sure, I might feel hungry at the moment, but you know what? If I can go, sell something or scam something or do this or that, I can go get some dope because I'm starting to get sick, and I need to do that now, right? And that's their main focus. Not like, hey, I need to go get a job. I need to figure a way out of this. And it's like, I need to take care of my addiction because that's at the top of the list. But if we made a new system where, it's tough love. And it's like, okay, you were offered rehab, just come on in, right? Let's see what we can do for you, right? And don't have it where the government's being stolen from. Mm-hmm. A bunch of thieves get in there and start taking the money and misappropriating it and trying to line their pockets with it and actually make it work. Yeah. And if they don't want to come in, well, then they get busted for a crime. They don't get revolving door issues. Now, drug court, depending on how far along in their addiction, I imagine it does help a lot of people. But but a lot of people that get busted, they don't seem to care. They go do their drug court, they kind of fake their UAs, or they do this or they do that, and then they're right back in a cycle. Or you have a single mom who was in a relationship. She was in an addict relationship with a guy, has a couple kids, ends up on Section 8. Now she's got a place to stay. And all of a sudden, her old lifestyle comes back into the house around the children. And then she loses her Section 8, loses her kids. I know because I've dealt with cases like that a lot.
Yeah, you have to be ready. That's another thing that Cam said. If you're not ready, right, then drug court, nothing's going to help you. If you don't want to get clean, there's no chance you're going to get clean. Zero, right? Yeah. There's different kind of people too. good friend of mine, right? He was born an addict, right? He's adopted. He was born an addict, right? He's fought that his whole life. You have to be a strong person. You can't sit there, go through your whole life, just give up every time you feel, that urge. You have to be strong. And that's what Cam's big thing was during his interview was, you have to want to be clean, you have to want to quit, and you have to take it serious. If you don't, then no one's going to be able to get you to do that. You have to do that. At the end of the day, it comes down to the person. And that is the most important part. It's an individual experience for each one of these addicts. And I don't know what the answer is for that, because that's the big thing. They're all different. And you have to want to quit. You can't just be like, well, everyone says I should stop, so I should probably stop. You know what I mean? That's not going to work. Yeah. So, but if you truly in your heart, like when I met Cam was a mess. I met him through the music scene. He's not going to mind me saying this stuff. I met him in the music scene. He was a mess. I let him sleep on my couch. He came over one time, asked to borrow a pair of underwear. You know what I mean? That's when you know you're in a bad place, right? So literally, I have never, ever, ever, really been around anybody that was in that mindset. But there was something about him that I liked, and we would help him. Me and Sean, anytime he would come around, we'd feed him, we'd give him something to drink, we would give him clothes to wear. We knew we were never going to see those clothes again, but he would take off, and then we wouldn't see him again for another 6 months. And then he'd come back and he'd have his little cane that he'd been carving on, for months. And he'd be the same. He'd look terrible, and he looked skinny, and he looked bad. And I always felt bad, and we hated it. And we wanted him to get clean really bad, because we couldn't hang out with him on a daily basis because we just didn't like where he was. Yep. So he would take off for a month at a time, show back up, looking like crap again. And then next thing you know, we would just embrace him like we always do, but he'd sneak in the bathroom for 45 minutes at a time, and that would piss me off. And, I would tell him, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just going to the bathroom. I'm like, I don't believe you, type thing. And but I say that to say this. Once he was ready, you can't stop him now. He's on a mission. Know what I mean? Yeah. He should help. He should be a counselor. He should help people. He's got the right mindset. He's ready for this. He's not doing this because people told him to do it. But he will tell you, drug court got me started. Having someone hold me accountable for my decisions helped me get clean. I needed someone that was going to smack my hand when I was reaching for the wrong stuff.
That tough love work.
He needed it. Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the approach about starting with youth? I mean, I don't think that just say no to drugs, it was a great idea, but I don't think it works.
Especially nowadays.
I think it should be where kids are shown, like, hey, this is what meth addiction looks like, this is what fentanyl addiction looks like, and this is what the end outcome is going to look like. Or some type of education, like, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is what your life is going to look like. Yeah. Also, the other flip side of the coin, investing in our youth. Yeah. Because, I don't know. It seems like decades. I'm old now. Decades for me just seem to go by. Yeah. Right? and for things I'm talking about, like I was listening to trance music. You guys are all blown away by that. Yeah. I've been doing that since the 90s. It gets the alpha waves going and this, that, and the other. But there seems to be repeating cycles in society now, in American society, where this is the new norm. We go for things that are like, not good for our youth, not good for our health. As long as it's making a buck, it seems to be just fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting too, because when I say it's in each person, like, here's a good example. When I was raised, my mom used to smoke cigarettes in the house growing up, right? I absolutely hated my mom's smoking cigarettes in the house. So anyone that knows me growing up, I hate cigarettes. I've never even tried them. I don't go anywhere near them. I can't stand them. I don't want them anywhere close to me, right? They're annoying. But it's because of the way I was raised. Then my mom, after my dad died, my mom met a biker guy, and that guy was a coke dealer. So him and my mom were doing coke, and he was really violent and used to beat my mom, and it was a very bad experience for me. So you can ask Case, I never messed with hard drugs, right? Like, I never liked that stuff. It like scared me away from that stuff. But I don't necessarily know if that would have done that to everybody. Some people might go from that experience and, you know, end up being a cokehead, smoking cigarettes every day because that's how they were raised, right? It scared me away from that stuff. It made me never want to touch it. It made him look like a monster to me. Excuse me. And my mom made cigarettes just seem invasive and gross because my clothes smell like smoke every day at school. So it's like, that's what it did for me. But what does that do for, like, you know, on an individual basis for each person? One person might walk away an addict from that. And then someone, you know, and someone like me, not at all. It was the opposite. It taught me to stay away from it.
You know, if you're in a single parent household, you're growing up, and now you're in your teen years, right? And there's a lot of stress on a single parent. Because I know, because I did it myself for a bit, right? I had a lot of help, but still was a single parent for quite some time. If you're going to your teen years and you grew up in a single parent household, and now you're hanging out with other kids, the cool, you know, the cool kids, the bad kids, or whatever, and everybody's like smoking pot, or somebody, you know, wants to go ahead and, like, you know, snort some powder, or this is cool, and you don't have a family unit. This is now your new family brothers and sister unit.
Yeah.
You're falling in with that. So it's a cool thing to be doing. Again, it starts with day zero going forward, in my opinion. Where do you see, let's talk about this for a second. Where do you see America going from here if we don't implement some new strategies?
Downhill for sure. I mean, just from a local level, we can start there. We've seen what it's done here. It's so bad. You know, it's kind of like when you talk about the whole unseen thing. In my head, I'm joking. I'm thinking in my head like, well, kind of. We have to step over them like every 5 feet here in Olympia. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard not to see them, is what I'm saying. They're literally everywhere. But where this is a good example because we embrace it here. You know, we talk to the homeless people here, and they said Olympia is the best place they've ever been for a homeless person. They embrace homelessness here. It is definitely the place to be if you're homeless, is what they said. Mm-hmm. And that just shows you, like, well, what has that done? Has it fixed homelessness? You know what I mean? Is everything better here? You know, because this is such a great city for homelessness? Or has it just put a Band-Aid on it, like you said, and just kind of made everything worse, really? So, in my opinion, if I could use Olympia as an example, I think the country is definitely headed in the wrong direction. I know a lot of people do not like Trump, but Trump hates drugs, and he hates hard drugs, and he hates them being flushed into our country. He can't stand it, and he's so against it that I'm hoping that he just can clean it up, at least the best he can. I mean, there's no right answer. He's got to figure out something to help.
What do you think the solution to the problem is?
I don't know. I really don't. I do know that, like, so you were saying earlier, cops aren't mental health professionals, but now we have mental health units. So we didn't have that before. That's a new thing. We actually, instead of sending cops to mental health, we actually have a unit that we send out now. It used to be cops, it's not anymore. So stuff like that. Maybe just people that are like more specialized in these type of things can be able to help. But I really just think that if we just keep, you know, giving them, you know, what's the stuff that brings them back to life? Narcan. I don't think that's going to help the problem. I mean, without saying too much, I had somebody even say to me, like, that seems to even be making it so much worse. Narcan is doing nothing but helping them just OD over and over again.
There's a new chemical formula for fentanyl that I do believe Narcan doesn't work on, and it's picking up speed.
Yeah.
Because they have to keep changing the formula of fentanyl to skirt past this and that. What are you? I'd like to continue Unseen Americans.
Yeah.
Where do you want to see it go from here? Because we've dipped our toes in the water and we're not even in for the swim yet.
That's one thing I definitely like about Unseen Americans. I feel like it's got a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of people that help. There's a lot of things that surround this stuff. You know, interviewing people like mental health. I'd like to get Crew in here. Crew is a group that walks around and helps the homelessness every day around here in Olympia, and that's what they do. They're a mental health group that walks around, talks to make sure they're all okay and all that. That would be cool to get one of them in here. You know, we did the food bank ladies. That was awesome. You know, I would like to talk to maybe someone from the gospel mission. Like, that would be awesome. I think that just reaching out to not only the people that are on the streets, but the people that help, the people that are part of this, the people that deal with them on a daily basis, those kind of people will be good for the show. And I think that Unseen Americans is only going to grow into a bigger powerhouse because people want to know these stories. These are the stories that people don't get to hear. We drive by, we see them on the corner, and we wonder what the heck, how'd he get here? You know, is this a war vet? Is it drug addiction? Is it alcohol? Did his wife leave him? Like, I mean, what is it? How did you end up here? And so Unseen Americans can answer those questions, and I feel like that is what makes Unseen Americans so amazing, and why I think it's going to end up just becoming bigger and bigger.
Okay. All right. Well, I would propose that we next week, let's all put together a crew and let's go up to the big towns up north, up into Seattle.
Yeah.
And go spend a day or two or what have you. Let's go check that out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to have to spread it throughout the state here. I mean,
Spokane's another hot spot.
yeah.
It's very interesting out there. To sum up, this has had a personal impact on you just doing interviews.
Definitely 100%. I think any kind of perception I had towards homeless people in general has definitely been altered. I don't look at it the same. Having those conversations with those guys has definitely made me look at them a little bit different.
Let's wrap it up from here.
Hey there,
All right,
podcast
Toby,
lovers.
thanks for...
Dive into the world of ideas with the American Enlightenment Podcast. Follow us for mind-expanding episodes that keep you curious and inspired. Visit our website now and join the conversation.